Hey dudes, welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about an upcoming extraction shooter called Hawked, which will be available to try out via an open beta that's being hosted by the developers My.Games between the 3rd and the 17th of August. Hawked will be a free-to-play online PvPvE extraction shooter that drops you into Exile, the cleverly named arena which is the game's current battlegrounds. Exile has an abundance of artifacts which players will be tasked on retrieving, and most of these artifacts come with puzzles that players must also complete in order to retrieve them. The rest is simple. Once you fill up your boots with artifacts, you have to get to an extract zone and get yourself out of there. The developers have stated that they are aiming to make the most accessible extraction shooter which is easy for everyone to play and fun right off the bat, but also satisfying, engaging and competitive once you master the combat. I was invited to an exclusive preview that developers hosted recently for content creators, and I have to say that my initial reaction to the game was just that. It was fun, it was easy to grasp, and it quickly became apparent that there is quite a bit of depth to the gameplay mechanics, which will give players a lot of flexibility on how they want to play the game. I'll start by talking about player progression and what makes Hawked unique from other extraction shooters. There is a plethora of gear, artifacts and boosts that the player can customize for their loadout and influence the way they engage in combat. They vary from things like a deployable coin that the player can shoot and ricochet bullets towards the nearest enemy, which is great for getting around corners with theoretically bendy bullets, to things like a lantern which you can deploy bugs from that search out and burn your nearby opponents. Or even opt for more self-preservation with the gears and boosts you equip that might help you win fights by purely tanking more damage than your enemy can. I only got to play a few rounds, so I didn't have the chance to try all of the gear and boosts that the game has to offer, but I can see the potential for some solid communicative team play where players choose builds that support one another and learn to rely on each other's chosen loadouts. It really could add quite a few variables when encountering other players on Exile, depending on if the developers manage to balance all of these things that they're juggling. It's too early to say if there will be an emerging meta, but that's what testing is for, and the open beta coming in a couple of weeks will give all players a chance to try everything. Especially as the open beta will include a free battle pass, which the developers are actually referring to as a renegade pass, so I'll call it that from now on. This renegade pass will persist over to the full launch of the game, so any progress you make during the open beta will not be lost and you get it for free, which is surprisingly generous as far as game launches go. Basically, you will land on Exile, which is an exotic island littered with puzzles, treasure and varying difficulties of PvE interactions. The island itself can evolve during a session with dynamic events that offer a twist to the gameplay loop and might give you an edge over your opponents. You will deploy with some basic defensive weaponry to help you deal with any PvE encounters you come across. You will loot the environment for weapons, tools and treasure, and more importantly glyphs. Finding glyphs will eventually lead you to the location of sought after artifacts, which will be guarded by tougher AI. And of course, potentially other players, as ultimately everyone is looking for these same artifacts. If you manage to prevail and retrieve this artifact, it's time to find an extraction zone and get out with the spoils. It's important to note that you don't have to acquire the artifact, you can extract with what you've gathered at any point by heading to an extraction zone ahead of time. In between rounds, you'll be taken to the Rift Wake, which is basically a pre-game lobby, very much akin to the Cycle Frontier and its version, where players can purchase boosters and skins, level up their skills, and party up with friends and decide on which game mode they are going to queue up for. There's a bunch of NPCs in this area which all seem to have pretty fleshed out dialogue, at least from what I saw, so there's some lore building going on whilst you're not out searching for artifacts. Teams are in trios and you can party up with friends to take on a challenge together or do squad fill before you queue. I haven't seen any information whether there will be a solo queue specifically, I'm not sure. Hopefully we can at least queue solo into trios, but the way the builds work, you could find yourself struggling if you're outnumbered in this game. If anyone in your team goes down, you can pick them back up unless the enemy has finished them off completely, in which case you can head to a revival point and bring them back into the game, without the need to pick up any dog tags or soul shard type of stuff from their drop container. So now let's talk about the weapons, which actually to me were quite a surprise, I must be honest. There's already a bunch of different weapons in the game, offering physical ammunition or energy weapons, and even a healthy dose of inventive melee weapons to choose from. All with customizable skins, which I assume will be the developers' plan to help fund the continued live service that they will be managing, because let's face it, free-to-play still costs money to run, and so long as the purchased items never affect gameplay, then I'm all for it. And with the graphical style that they've got going on here, and some of the skins are actually really attractive, I think it's probably the best route for them to go anyway. To be honest with you, Hawked was a nice surprise for me. The game is well stylized, it seemed well thought out. If not a little overwhelming at first, but I only got a few hours of the game during the preview and I definitely started to slip into the core loop of things and started to find gear and weapon combos that I really enjoyed and seemed to work well with each other. and it was interesting trying everything out and learning the ropes. I imagine with a bit more time to play it, then I could really start to be at least competent in fights against other players, because during the preview I did not do too well. But with a bit of practice and learning all the game's mechanics, how the boosts and the artifacts all work and how you can actually make a decent build, I think, you'd do much better than I did. Like I said, it was only a short preview that I got a chance to play, so that's pretty much all I've got for now. Definitely give the game a shot when the open beta launches on the 3rd of August. Like I said, there will be a free Renegade pass for you to level up, and it will continue through to the launch of the game, so none of your progression will be lost. Thank you for checking out this video, dudes. I hope you enjoyed it, or at least found some useful information, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I shall catch you on the flip-flop. Peace.